computer and go.
Wednesday night, August 12th, 2020. Tonight we'll be looking at a manuscript, Teshuvah. Technically unpublished, but already word of this Teshuvah has gotten out. The same way I found out about it, others have found out about it. And there are actually rabbis and researchers that are writing articles about it already. So it may have already been published in some sort of Torah journal or academic journal, but it's still fairly new. It's only, came to people's knowledge May, June. And this is a teshuvah that was found in the archives of Rabbi Kook, Rabbi Abraham Yitzhak Cohen Kook, or Rabbi Kook, as people know him, 1865 to 1935. This teshuvah, though, is from Rabbi David Askénazi. Rabbi David Askénazi, born in 1898, Algeria. He passed away in 1983. He was the rabbi, the chief rabbi of the Algerian community, the community specifically in Oran, Algiers. And he was the chief rabbi there until 1962, when he picked up and left to Paris. And that was basically the end of that community. What brings us to this teshuvah? This teshuvah deals with a issue of halakhah within a particular community, in the community of Oran, Algeria, which wasn't an issue as far as the people there were concerned, as far as the rabbis there were concerned. Not that it has nothing to do with halakhah. They dealt with it internally, and it was not an issue that they had to address or answer anybody on the outside. What happened, though, is Algeria was a very cosmopolitan place. You have to understand, the French colonized Algeria, and this colony of Algiers, if you will, became completely French when they took it over in 1830, and it remained that way until 1962. By the time of this particular teshuvah, this teshuvah that we're looking at is going to be from 1935, okay, so the French influence was already there for over 100 years, 105 years to be exact. Algeria was more than 100% completely Parisian. It was completely French in the way people walked, talked, dressed, sang, ate, anything that they did, anything in their mindset, their language was completely taken over by French. Nobody spoke any sort of old Jewish dialects anymore. Nobody even spoke Arabic over there. Everything was completely French. And because of it, it became a very, very modernized municipality. And European people would come to visit Algeria because it had terrific weather. Okay, Oran was also on the water, so you had beaches and you had mountains. At the same time, you had all the modernities of Europe at the time. So we're dealing 1935 Algeria. You have a gentleman that came to the community, and he basically didn't like something that he saw, and he went and he tattled. He sent a letter back to Eretz Israel, to Rabbi Kook, complaining about the Algerian Jewish community, a Sephardic community, but he's Ashkenazi himself, so he's complaining to an Ashkenazi rabbi, the chief rabbi of the Ashkenazim in Israel. And what's his complaint? In the synagogue here, in the great synagogue, and it was really a tremendous synagogue that they had there in Algeria that started being built in 1880. It took them maybe 15 years or so to build it. Basically, they had an organ. Okay? Now, when we think organ in the Bet Knesset, we think reform. That is basically what we think, because when organs were started to be brought in Europe, and Europe I mean over here, Germany, Hungary, these particular countries, they were brought in, and immediately the reform movement attached itself to it. And once they brought it in, that was the beginning of change in the tefillah, change in the Bet Knesset. And from there, they started changing the text of the Siddur. They started doing away with references to Eretz Israel and to moving to Eretz Israel and to religious Zionism that was always part of the liturgy. So this was a main factor of reform. And even though there were originally some completely Orthodox synagogues that had organs in them, they immediately had to get rid of them and they had to ban them. Now, obviously, the Jews of Algeria, Sephardic Jews in Algeria, have nothing to do with the Reform movement, and the Reform movement had nothing to do with them. They didn't know about Rabbi Kook. Rabbi Kook didn't know about them. But Rabbi Kook, obviously, as the chief rabbi of the Ashkenazim, and knowing Ashkenazi history and Ashkenazi mindset and Ashkenazi rulings, immediately when he heard that there is a organ being played on Shabbat in the main synagogue of Oran, Algeria, he immediately sent off a telegraph. Okay, this is Asur. But not only did he send the telegraph, he also was prodded by a particular individual, I guess the individual who sent him the question to begin with. You know, you better send a lengthy teshuvah or a complete teshuvah because they're not listening to you over here in Algeria. So this is the background, more or less, to our teshuvah tonight. So we don't need to look at the teshuvah of Rabbi Kook. Rabbi Kook's teshuvah is printed in his book called Oran Mishpat, and we're really not concerned with his teshuvah. We're concerned with the response to his teshuvah by Rabbi David Askénazi, who was Sephardic, he was Algerian, he was the chief rabbi of an established Jewish community that had no connection to Rabbi Kook. Okay? Not in mindset, not in culture, not in history, not in anything. Keep in mind, before we get to this teshuvah, that Rabbi Kook, in his letter, didn't even address the issue of hashma'at kol, the Shabbat, the listening to sounds, okay, which is an issue of Hilchot Shabbat. He didn't address that at all. All he addressed was that the Ashkenazim already decreed this to be forbidden. There should be no distinguishing between Sephardim and Ashkenazim as far as an organ in the Bet Knesset on Shabbat is concerned. The organ on Shabbat, or the organ in the Bet Knesset, is an issue of Hukot HaGoyim, the ways and paths of the non-Jews, and specifically Middarchei Abodatam, the way they worship. These were his main points, and that all scrupulous Jews are very, very careful about this, and they don't do it. And through this teshuvah of Rabbi Kook in his Oran Mishpat, we find out the name of the person who asked the question or asked him to write the teshuvah, and he refers to him as Harab HaGaon HaMisuyan Rabbi Hayim Lush Lamed Shin Saddi. Okay, you don't have that information in front of you, so I'm giving it to you. Not a very common Ashkenazi name as far as I know, but Rabbi Kook refers to this gentleman as a rabbi. Okay? And this is more or less our background. I can give you plenty more background information if you want about the Jews of Algiers and Oran and, and mindset and what have you. The only other thing I want to tell you is that how are we going to do this like this? The letter from Rabbi Kook to Algeria is from January 1935. Rabbi Askénazi responded in March of 35. September 1st, 1935, Rabbi Kook dies. Okay? So maybe he was too sick to respond again or to apologize. But keep in mind that we don't have more to go on, and we probably will never find more on this particular specific topic. Okay, so now that we have that background information, let's try to look at the teshuvah itself. And if you have questions as we go along, please chime in. Okay? Any questions before we begin? No.
Why didn't Rabbi Kook give honor to the chief rabbi to answer the question? Does he have hegemony over Algeria?
I don't think it was a question to him. I think he viewed, because if you look at Rabbi, obviously I'm not presenting to you Rabbi Kook's teshuvah, but Rabbi Kook's teshuvah, I'll read you the opening section of it because I made a copy for myself. He writes, where is it over here? בעניין הספרדים באורן, שיש מי שמתיר להם להעמיד עוגה בבית הכנסת פני שהוא אומר שכל האיסורים שנאמרו בזה מגדולי רבותינו האחרונים בדורות הקרובים שלפנינו לא נאמרו אלא לאשכנזים ולא לספרדים אם יש מקום לדבריו. So he addresses it as an issue of Sephardim versus Ashkenazim, and those who say this is a issue that was only dealt with and said it's forbidden by Ashkenazi rabbis, it's not only for Ashkenazim, it's for Ashkenazim and Sephardim. So once he's going in with such a mindset, he doesn't see any reason, I'm sure, to forward the question to the Sephardi chief rabbi. Now, 1935, Sephardic chief rabbi, of course, we're dealing with Rabbi Uziel. Correct? Yes. Rabbi Uziel does not deal with this question whatsoever. He deals with a question of ugab, of organ in the Beit Knesset, but only in 1947 in a question, or rather in a responsum that he writes on his own, not being asked. He writes on his own to the Sephardim in Buenos Aires, Argentina. When he hears that they have a organ in their Beit Knesset that they use for, not for tefillot on Shabbat, but that they use maybe for weddings or something. And Rabbi Uziel gets very angry about it and writes a teshuvah about that in 1947. Okay, so even if he got such a question, I think, from Rabbi Kook in 1935, the answer wouldn't have been favorable. Okay? So we can keep that in mind. So now let's read this teshuvah. Okay? You see it's on the original letterhead of the chief rabbinate of Oran. We know it's an original letter. The only thing I will tell you, because Rabbi Kasola, you said it's a very nice handwriting and you can read it and what have you, I do not believe that Rabbi David Askénazi himself wrote the letter. I believe he had his secretary. Okay, as we know, the chief rabbis in all these places had secretaries. They had office staff. They had other rabbanim working with them and talmidim working with them. I believe he had somebody write it. And the reason I say so, because if you look at the last page, okay, it's a nine pages. If you look at the last page, you see Rabbi David Askénazi signs it in blue, as opposed to the black that it was written in. You see the difference in the letters. Okay? Plus, if you look carefully at certain parts of this letter, you will see added punctuation, commas and periods and what have you, added in blue. So that means Rabbi Askénazi obviously dictated the letter, and then he reviewed it before it was sent out, and he made some minor changes and clarifications. And he probably had it done this way because Rabbi Askénazi probably only wrote in the Sephardic style, and he knew he was sending a letter to the chief rabbi of the Ashkenazim. So in his mind, he's not going to be able to read it. If I write it to him in Sephardic script, I have to have somebody write it for me in more or less a block script. Okay? And that's what he had done over here, in my opinion. I could be wrong. It could be that he wrote it himself. But I don't think so. So now let's read the Teshuvah. We're all good here? Clear? Everybody's clear? Good. Teshuvah megula al Pesach harab kebod moreno harab Kook. Hashem yahayehu v'yishmerehu. ראש רבנים לעדות האשכנזים בארץ ישראל על עניין העוגה בבתי כנסיות בפרט בקהילתנו ישמרנו סורנו אמן. Okay, very nice. Open response. Teshuvah megula. Open response. Rabbi, that's it. You attack me, I'm taking this to the public. That's the way he's taking right away. He's standing up for himself and for his kehillah. Okay, he takes it to the open forum. The response to the ruling of Rabbi Kook, the head rabbi of the Ashkenazi communities in Eretz Israel. He's telling Rabbi Kook, know your place. Know who you are, know your place. Now, obviously, Rabbi Askénazi most probably did not know who Rabbi Kook was, or, what knowledge he had, or what was in Rabbi Kook's mind in his response. But also keep in mind, Rabbi Askénazi, even though he was chief rabbi, he was fairly young. He was only 37 years old at the time. So he was, vibrant. Rabbi Kook, on the other hand, was, as we mentioned, he just passed away not long after. He was born in 1865. This is 1935. So 70. He's 70 years old. 70 versus 37 years old. We're dealing with a great difference of age, different mindset, different country, different head. Okay, regarding the organ in the synagogue, and specifically in our kehillah. Who are you, you outsider, that you're talking to us? Okay, that's the way you have to look at it. Now we start. Okay, in our holy camp, Rabbi Askénazi starts. נמצא איש אחד מאחינו האשכנזים הבא לגור אצלנו ועשינו לו טובות הרבות כהלכת גוברין יהודאין. Okay, because in our city, in our town, in our community, there's one Ashkenazi guy who came to live with us, and we did so many nice hasadim with him. We were all pleasant to him. We treated him like a fellow Jew, the way halakhah dictates to do. וזה כמה חודשים מחרחר ריב ומדון לעשות אומנותנו של שטן. עולה ומסטין, יורה מקטרג, מראה תלפים כדבר אחר לאמור, ראוני שאני טהור ולמדן. This guy, number of months, he's trying to start problems. He's a rabble rouser. He's a troublemaker. And he wants to bring the Satan into everything. He wants to call up down and down up, and he makes fun of us, and he tries to instigate things just to show that he is pure and white. I'm great. You guys, forget about you guys. ובאתי לאסור איסר על מה שנהגתם מחי שנה אתם וקהילתכם. And he came all of a sudden to forbid something that we've been doing for the last 18 years. So in other words, they have the organ in the synagogue since 1917, he's telling you now. ולא שם על ליבו, ולא ידע מידת השלום, אשר אמרו רבותינו זכרם לברכה, גדול השלום שאפילו ישראל עבדו, עובד עבודה זרה, ושלום ביניהם, אין השטן מקטרג עליהם שנאמר בור עשבים אפרים הנח לו שינוי המחלוקת שנאמר חלק ליבם עתה יאשמו. We have shalom in our place and we try to keep shalom. And this guy's coming and he's trying to destroy the shalom. And he doesn't know that even if you have an abid who's obeyed avodah zarah, but you have shalom with him, nothing, the Satan cannot come in and cause any sort of problem. Shalom is greater than everything else, and we try to keep shalom. ויעוד מה שאמרו, מוטב שיהיו שוגגים ולא מזידים. And we know that the Hachamim have written, it's better that people do something accidentally than do it knowingly. אף בדברי תורה, even in דברי תורה. והנח להם ישראל. And we know, let Am Yisrael, let them be. כהנה וכהנה רבות לא יחילם ספר ולא ימלא שפר. Because I could keep writing on this one topic alone, and I'll fill up a book. It will never end. והנה, פנה אליך להתטפל בעניינו, להיות ערב לדמיונו. All of a sudden he goes and he turns to you to get involved and take his side. From where to where? והיום הזה שלח אליי על ידי הבדואר העתקה בפסקך. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, he sends me a copy today from the post office. Comes your letter with your opinion, with your pisak, with your ruling. ותמיהה טובה עליך, האדם הקדוש שעשית להתערב בקהילה שאינה תחת השפעתך ולא לך משפט הגאולה. I'm shocked. I'm surprised. I'm bewildered. Where do you come in from to get involved in our kehillah? We don't fall under your jurisdiction whatsoever. How come all of a sudden? Where did this come from? You could tell he's really troubled. He's incensed by this. ופירט תלם דעת טיבו של עובד זה, ושמוע דברי החכמים היושבים על בדין, הגם שידעתי ביני ידעתי דכל המשיב על פי סגנון השאלה מותר דהווה כדרך הם כלים הדברים. Because I understand, you're not guilty. He's guilty. The guy who came and turned to you, he just sent you a question. You answered the question. You didn't have any evil intention. I got it. Okay? But you don't know the guy. You don't know our city. You don't know our community. Let me fill you in a little bit, he tells him. Now, קודם כל למודעי אני צריך. I got to fill you in. I got to give you some knowledge. שהאיש הזה עד בואו לעירנו והוא ערום ועריה. This guy comes to our city. He's naked and bare. Okay? But ערום could also be he's cunning. עלה במחשבתו וביקש לעקור את הכל. He came with ideas in his head to uproot everything. לעבוד ביום, turn the page, Shabbat Kodesh, לפרנסתו. He wants to come and start working on Shabbat, the holy day of Shabbat, to increase his finances. הודיעני נא דרכיך אם לא לבקש לחומרות דרבנן. Can you please tell me, Rabbi Kook, does it make any sense that this guy wants, all of a sudden he's asking about to do humrot? This guy wants to transgress, express words of the Torah. He wants to transgress the Shabbat, which is written, Torah shebichtav, Torah shebe'al peh, it's all there. And this humrah of the Rabbanan meaning you modern rabbis who decided to say that Ugab is Asur, that he has a problem with. But the Shabbat he has no problem with. The Ugab in bu yoter. Okay, fine, okay. אחר שהיה בדעתו לעבור באמת על גופי התורה כלאחר יד. Well, this person had the intention to transgress the Torah outright. לחלל שבת החמורה שנאמר עליה שומר שבת מחללו וכל השומר שבת כהלכה אפילו עובד עבודה זרה ומאן דנתר שבת כמאן דנתר. person that keeps the Shabbat properly and observes it and doesn't transgress it, even if the guy does something of Avodah Zarah, the zechut of the Shabbat protects him. Because I don't understand. Who is this guy? Where did he come from? Now remember, in Rabbi Kook's Teshuvah, he calls him Harab Gaon. So if we're talking about the same guy, something doesn't make sense. You know, it could be that the guy sent the question to this Rabbi, Haim Lachis, you know, and Rabbi Haim Lachis sent the question to Rabbi Kook. And Rabbi Kook doesn't know who the actual guy is back in Oran, Algeria, which is very possible. Because I don't think somebody that Rabbi Kook's going to call Harab Gaon is going to be somebody who's going to be Mahal Shabbat. Anything's possible, but I have a hard time believing that. Okay. First part. Now we'll continue. We're on the next, we're still on page 2 now, the next paragraph, right? Rabbi, you should have turned to the guy and asked him, who appointed you? This community in Oran, Algeria, has been around for hundreds of years. There's people there. There's a committee. There's rabbis. Who are you? You just go and answer questions willy-nilly like that? מי שמו לשר ושופט בקהילה רבה עיר ואם בישראל שנמצאו שם חכמים ורבנים שקטנם עבה במותניו. Because the most minute rabbi, the most minor league rabbi over here, okay, his pinky, his thumb, his finger is greater than this guy's entire waist, he's telling you. So who is this guy? ולא הוא בעצמו התפלל שנה ושנתיים בית הכנסת אשר מנגנים בו בעוגה ולא דיבר מאומה. This same guy that's complaining, he prayed with us in our Beit Knesset for a year or two, week after week after week after week, without opening his mouth to complain about this organ that he heard. All of a sudden, he woke up and was complaining about it. גם לא בא לפני רבותיו לשאול מהם. And he didn't come to us, any of the rabbis of the Kehillah here, to ask us about it. He just goes running to you to attack us? What is that? על מי ועל מה שיתקיים על פתגם דינא. אך מחדש מתחבר עם אנשים בני בליעל. But recently, he hooked up with the wrong element of people, troublemakers. בלי יועל פריסים המחללים שבת בפרהסיה. People who don't care about Shabbat and they give up on Shabbat and they transgress Shabbat all the time. שלא על חינם הלך הזרזיר אצל העורב. He's calling him like a little insect, okay, and with a crow, with a raven, all evil things. ורצה לטעות את השם ביניהם. So he wants to like be the rabbi among them, you know, and bring them Torah, and you know, so he's looking for hot topics to to egg them on. على بشرك يسيبه بداية نأمر الله كل الرسول يتوى الشيم يبوه بيتوى سبوعيم عوسيم معاسي زمري الرسول قبل سيخاك معاسي في الحاس. So we know the story of Zimri. He went to have relationships with what he called the Midianite woman, and Pinehas came and he stabbed, the two of them together. Because this guy wants to do the act of Zimri, and he wants to get the Berit Shalom, the Beracha from Borei Olam of Pinehas. He thinks he could do both. He could be both people at the same time. It's impossible. Either you're bad or you're good. You can't be both bad and good at the same time. אבל עשית את הרבנות כדבר הרשות לתת לו במכתבך של יום חי לחודש שבה תוארים שאין לו חלק בהם, לא מיניה ולא מקצתה, ודי לי בפתחתי זאת אשר קסרתי בה מאפס העית בעיניי. And you turn this guy into some great person. So now maybe that appellation of Harab Gaon, we're talking about the same guy, the same Hayim Lashitz. Okay? So you gave him all these flowery titles in your letter, and he doesn't even deserve the least of them. And I could keep going on, he's telling you, but I'm not going to go on. I said enough, and I don't have time for this nonsense. Now, After Rabbi David Askénazi gave this intro, Rabbi David Askénazi wants to try to get into the topic at hand. Atta Abu Ha'ira al-Isim Shi'lato. Now I'm going to come to comment upon the gist of your question. Okay? And Abu Ha'ira, I'm coming to the city. This is my city. I'm taking care of my city. Okay? Don't think we have nobody here. You have to understand. In the typical way of the very, very swift Sephardi Hachamim, they know how to take one word and bring up duplicate intentions. מתحلات الشوبات إخان الإيه ششكر عنا بتلاتنا بدلاتنا يعني بمختبوش كتاب لانو بالصرفاتيت من يوم February 20th 1934 شو عليم هالخبو بأمور لانو إن لانو يديعا محيرم هراب حتم صوفير على كل هالنخناس لبيت الكنيسة شنجينين بوها عقاب از لقيمة شنيمار أنا كيسي كيفلتو يشابنو لو صرفاتيت على حرم ولو ديبانو ميوما على هيسور عصمو شارب حتى صوفي زاد حريم بدورو ات كيلوت أشكنازيم وربوتين وسفرديم عدين لو يحريمو بيت الكنيسة بأوران شل حخاميم ومحاي شنا مبلدين بو حاسدين بحريديم اف إميش بدبار يسور بإن بوسي بيرمس of safe. Because, yeah. You sent us an earlier letter. Letter came to us in French. We answered it in French as well. Okay. Asking if we have any knowledge of the ruling of the Hatam Sofer regarding anything and everything that enters the Beit Knesset, specifically instruments and more specifically about the organ, and we answered the letter. We didn't touch upon this point on purpose because what the Hatam Sofer had to say and what he forbade in his generation was for the Ashkenazi Kihilot, and the Sephardic Hachamim still did not make a ruling on this same topic, and all the more so not for our city, not for our community. And we have, for the last 18 years, we're using it. We have many Hachamim here, many Hasidim, many Haredim, all types of religious people praying here. And nobody ever said anything about it being a sur. Nobody said a peep. Nobody whispered about it even. Nothing. Nobody made a sound. Zod ve'od. كم حخامين وربانيم عبرين وشابيم كوليليم سفرديم وأشكنازيم يبللوا بو. He goes, listen, year after year, month after month, we have many tourists here. And not just regular tourists, regular people. We have Rabbanim. We have Hachamim. We have rabbis that come collecting for Kolelim. We have Sephardim and we have Ashkenazim. And they've all been here to our city and they've all prayed in our synagogue. And not one ever said a word. Bi'ada Haron Harab Dob Levi Englander. Sa'ila Mishtalleh Me'eta Mizrahim. Okay, and from the Mizrahim over here, we're talking about what's known in the Zionist movie as the Mizrahi movement. So you had Rabbi Dob Levi Englander. He was here. Velo hashu, velo hilgishu, l'chayram hazeh. They didn't make a sound, they didn't open their mouth, they didn't even hint to anything. Asher be'emet. היה דבר נחוס לשעתו ולדורו למגדר מלתה ותו לו. If it was something, they would have said something. And if it wasn't something, that means it didn't apply to the place and time. אילו היו תוכן דברינו בקיסון נפנס. אילו היו תוכן דברינו, אוקיי, תוכן דברינו בקיסון. ומי הוא זה ואיזה הוא שיש מוח בראשו המרהיב עוז בנפשו בזה הזמן להחרים ולנדות קהילה אחת או אפילו איש אחד אף על גופי תורה. Because who is the person in our generation that could put a person in harem? And over here, you want to put an entire kehillah in Harim. He goes, who does that nowadays? People don't put people in Harim. Where are we living? הלא ידעת מה שכתב בעל הדרישה ומהר"ם כתב בזמן הזה שהנדויים מקולקלים אין מדין כל מי שראוי לנדות אף בעבירות גדולות וחמורות ודעת מה ואפילו בשורת הדין לא החמירו החכמים הן ימנעו מלעשות תשובה כל שכן שבדורנו שנבלים יביישו את האדם על כך ולפעמים אין האדם מושל ברוחו ויבוא לידי דברים הרעים ואפילו לידי שפיכות דמים. Because we're living in a different time. And we already know that the Baal HaDirisha and Maharam wrote that in our present time, and we're talking already from a couple of hundred years before, he's telling you, and that continues, we've come into a different world. And you can't put people into Nidui and into Harim because if the guy doesn't do Teshuvah, and in most likelihood he will not do Teshuvah, then you've ruined the guy's world. You ruin his life in Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba. The guy has no chance of doing any sort of teshubah. You've prevented somebody from doing teshubah when you put him in Nidui or Harim. You can't do that. And if you put somebody in Nidui or Harim today, you have all these people that will go around and purposely embarrass him. And they'll embarrass the person so much the guy will not be able to control his emotions anymore. And who knows what will happen after that? And who knows how the people will react after that? So basically, you're telling us, put a person in Harim or Nidui because it's okay to commit murder. Because that's what you're going to be doing to the person. You're going to cause murder. You're going to cause people to embarrass him to a point of murdering him. It's shifichut damim. V'harama פסק בהגהה בשולחן ערוך יורדעה סימן שין למדה סעיף סבדי זין ולכן נהגו להקל מלמחות בעוברי עבירה שיש לחוש שיהיו עומדים על גופנו ומאודינו. Because even Muram tells us strange Shulchan Aruch, we don't do it. We don't do Harim, we don't do Nidui. So then we're talking about 450 years ago. We're telling we don't do it anymore. בדברים של טעם וחוכמה יתרה הם מסריהם, הם מסדנו, שאנחנו רואים את הסום ותמיד תהיה שמאל דוחה וימין מקרבה בחזקה. Because we're here. We are the shepherds of our flock. We have to know what to do with our people. You can't come from the outside without knowing everything that's going on and tell us what to do. And you can't put an entire kehillah into Harim. Because we know we're the shepherds, and we know when we have to push away with our left hand and when we have to bring close with our right hand. Okay, it's a push and pull thing. We have to know to balance the kehillah. ואם אין אתה דן ככה, ויעלה על דעתך שהדין הרפה יקוב את ההר ושיש בידו ואינו מוחה אף בנפשו או בממונו נתפס על אותו עוון אמור נא לי אתה שהקולר תלוי עליך גלל ארץ סבי החוכמה כל כיבוסת של אחינו האשכנזים אשר באו על הארץ וטמאוה במעשיהם ושקוסיהם ואם אין לאל ידיך לא כמוך כמונו. He killed him just now. Rabbi Askénazi turns in this teshubah to Rabbi Kook and tells him, don't you know this? Don't you know how to lead people? He goes, then good. I guess you don't know. Because look what's going on in Israel right now. And I mean, this is pre-state Israel. This is 1935. Who's there? All these, for the most part, people that have come there, the anti-religious Zionists, okay? He goes, and look what you're doing with them. Are you making any headway with them, with your way of pushing them aside, of calling them names, of putting them in Harim, of not respecting them, or not finding a way to bring them closer? Obviously, your way doesn't work, Rabbi. It's not our way, and your way is definitely not the right way. And you don't know how to deal with them because with your methodology, what's happening, more and more of them are coming to Israel. He tells you the Ashkenazim are coming to Israel and they're bringing with them tum'ah and they're bringing shikus. They are doing disgusting things. They're acting like rodents. They're acting like vermin. and you're doing nothing about it. V'im en le'el yadecha halo kamocha kamonu. But if you're doing nothing about it, so you're no better than us over here. So you want to look at us and call us names and tell us our actions are bad? You're no better. Your actions are just as bad. This is very, very powerful. You would never imagine anybody talking to Rabbi Kook like this. We think Rabbi Kook, great holy man, and he was. Don't get me wrong. I'm not out to attack him. The point is you could tell Rabbi Askénazi had such a deep love and respect and caring for his congregation. Remember, 1935, the amount of Jews in Oran Algeria was close to 5,000 Jews. Okay? So as far as he's the chief rabbi. If he's not going to protect them, nobody is. That's it. Okay, next page. We're on top of page 4 now. Zod ve'od. Im alibat halakhah haram. حرم حاتم سوفر حال الكل كهلوت يشينوت وحداشوت يش لعصوت كل غرس حرم. He goes, now, since you want to bring me the Hatam Sofer and his Harim, well, very good. The whole world's in Harim now, thank you very much. Because that's all you're doing for me. The entire world is in Harim. America, Europe, Surfat, Africa, Bichlal. Everything. America, Europe, France, all of Africa. اشتحت لهم الدباريخة رميم Make sure you send them the same letter to all these places throughout the world. Or maybe you listen to what our Hakamim wrote. Hakamim, it's better to be quiet. He's going to town on them. And if you listen to the king, the one that's wiser than all men, it would be good for you. In other words, open up Mishleh and read the words of Shalom HaMelech is telling him. בחיבר הורה זקן, הגאון האמיתי הספרדי. Look at the pride. He goes, and we already have a ruling from our elders, the great elder. Okay? The Gaon ha'amiti as-Sephardi, the true Sephardic Gaon. Amud Haymini, he is the right-hand pillar. Hat-Tashbes, Rabbi Shimon ben Sebah. בתשובה נונהם, מחלק הראשון פוסק על מה שפשטה מספחת, שקרה כאה, שאם באנו לאחרים ולנדות המלמדים לשונה בשקר, אין נקי והייתה כל הארץ חרם. Because if we're going to start putting people at harem, there's no end. I'm going to put the whole world in harem. Don minei obe. He goes, take this to heart and judge for yourself from that. לא זו בלבד, אלא חתם סופר עצמו בתשובה פרטית מחלק שישי, מודה בעצמו, אני פי מלך שמור, ונסתבינו מעלית עלתה דלל העדה דינה דמלכותה, ואם כן האמת יורד דרכו, שלא היה בידו לאחרים, וכל שכן דלא חל עלינו מה שאין גם כן בידינו לעשות כאמור, משום דמלכותה דרעה. Because even if you look in further words of the Hatam Sofer is not as crazy about as Hatam as we would think at first glance. He also knows you have to be careful with Hatam. אף אם נודה שהוא אסור מהדין, וזה אינו כלל ועיקר וכלל, כי יש בו דווקא איסור דרבנן. Because, and maybe that's where the issue of Isur Torah, Isur Deoraita. But over here, you can't even call this Isur Rabbanan. So where are you going? Calm down on us. Pash Gaban لبروري ما رأينا أحيانا أنحن excuse me. Pash Gaban لبروري ما رأينا أنحن وحرديم على الدبار كبوت شمول الشتوك على عقاب هالزبك اللاتين. So now you hear where I'm coming from. Let's examine, let's look. Why us religious people, okay, that care about the sake of Borei Olam, why are we quiet regarding this issue of the organ in our congregation? Let me give you some background so you know what's going on over here. קרוב ל4 שנים נמניתי פה לנשיא הרבנות. He goes, so 4 years ago, I was appointed here as the head of the rabbinate. Okay, so you have to understand now, before we continue, that as opposed to a typical Sephardic community, we said now that Algeria is under French rule. Because it's under French rule, it has to follow French guidelines. In France, till today, there's something called the consistoire. The consistoire is, if you want to call it a ruling body, okay, that rules everything having to do with religion. The rabbi is tied into the consistoire, the synagogues are tied into the consistoire, the tzedakot are tied into the consistoire. It's basically one central authority. So Rabbi David Askénazi is not just rabbi or chief rabbi, okay? He is the president of this consistoire. So that means he has a lot to deal with. And being in that position, he's not only dealing with his congregation, he means he's dealing with the government as well, the French government that's ruling in Algiers, plus he's dealing with the consistoire back in Paris and the rabbis over there, mainly Ashkenazi rabbis, okay? But he's dealing with a lot of things at the same time. So he's a diplomat at the same time. I'll pull up a picture of him. Very, very funny. It's not what you would expect a rabbi to look like. Okay, this guy looks like he came out of a page of, I don't know, British history, French history. You don't think that he's the chief rabbi or the head of the Jewish community. But he was obviously a very important individual. So, קרוב ל4 שנים נמניתי פה לנשיא הרבנות. So 4 years ago I was appointed. So we're talking about 1931 now. וכבר היו מפללים משנים קדמוניות. And they were already praying before that. משנים קדמוניות. וסימנך יד החזקה. So the 4 years I was appointed and the 14 years before, that's 18 years. בבית הכנסת הגדול עם עוגב קטן. They were using a small organ. והחכמים שקדמוני רצו בתחילה למחות. שלא ינגנו בעוגב. And the rabbis that preceded me wanted to find a way to reprimand so they wouldn't use this ugab, this organ, and not use, no musical accompaniment in the synagogue. ואנשי הוועד לא קיבלו מהם בשום אופן. And the committee people would not accept under any circumstance. וכל העם מגדול ועד קטן באים ומפללים. ונעשה להם הדבר כעצם התפילה ממש. And all the people, young and old, come, and this is considered part of the prayer. Having the musical accompaniment there is part of the prayer. ואדרבה, רבו כמו רבו שלא היו יודעים דרך בית הכנסת אלא פעם אחת בשנה, ולא ישנה להם, ונמשך ליבם ובאו מדי שבת ושבתו לשמוע אל הרינה ולתפילה וכולם ששים ושמחים לעשות לשמקוניהם. Amazing. He goes, how did it come about to begin with? It's because people were coming to the Beit Knesset, and once you brought this ugab, this instrument, organ, into the Beit Knesset, more people started coming, and more people started coming, and more people started coming. People who didn't even know where the Beit Knesset was. They didn't know how to walk to the Beit Knesset. They would get there one time a year for Rosh Hashanah and Kippur. They started coming. Shabbat after Shabbat after Shabbat, bringing their friends, bringing their family. And they started enjoying tefillah, enjoying the singing, enjoying the music, listening to the speech on Shabbat. All of a sudden, this ugab, which obviously I'm saying these words now, not the rabbi, which the Ashkenazim outlawed because of reform, because it turns them away from Torah and Mizvot and Avodat Hashem. In the case of Oran Algeria, It did just the opposite. It brought the people to the Beit Knesset. It brought them to enjoy the tefillah. It brought them to Beit Hashem. It brought them closer to the Yehadut. It brought them to hear the Torah, to hear the Debrei Torah. Okay. So it's a beautiful thing he's telling you. Okay, now we're on top of page 5. ודוד הוא הקטן אנוכי. He's referring to himself, David Askénazi, Rabbi Askénazi. ודוד הוא הקטן אנוכי השעיר. קיבלתי על שכמי משרת ענבים לתקן כמה תיקונים בקהילתי זאת. And as the rabbi here, I took it upon myself to make some fixes, to make some corrections, to do what I can to strengthen the kehillah. יען, אני متى محسيا أوران של החכמים ואמרתי ללבי יבטל הרע במיעוטו ומה היא חומרת העוגה בעשר תלמוד תורה כנגד כולם שחיטה, גיטין, חליסות, גמילות חסדים, קופת עניים וכו' ובשנה שעברה נמנו וגמו מאחרי רבים לעתור להחליף העוגה בקטן בגדול רע בטוב ולא היה בידי לעכב כי אז יהיה המישור לעקוב ואפסיד את כל תקנותיי להרים קרן הדת, התורה והמצווה ולחינם אריב עם קהילתי וכמה קלקלות יעשו מן הדבר אני דנתי דין אמת לאמיתו דאף ודברי תורה מותר שיהיו שוגים ולא מזידין. Wow. So, he tells you over here, I came, corrected things in the kehillah, made things better. I was able to improve the shehita, improve the concept of the get, of the halisa, of gimil hasadim, of kupat anim, of sedakot, of all the of Talmud Torah, all different types of things. And I said, okay, maybe I can get rid now of this organ also. And I saw just bringing up the topic, incest a lot of anger in the people. And I realized that if I push this agenda, all the good I did until now is going to be utterly destroyed. I realized it's better to keep the organ. It keeps the people connected to the Beit Knesset, keeps them connected to the Yehadut, keeps them connected to the Torah, and that way I can continue to do good things that bring the people closer and closer and keep them attached. And as I said, mutab shiyu shogigim v'la mezidim. Better let them do things in an accidental fashion than on purpose. בפרק המביא כדי יין הסכנד אפילו בראיתה לה מחינה במלתד ידעינן תלה מקבלי מינן ובדל שכולם שוגגין ועיין תשבס חלק שני עניין בגניהם הרשבס אם תקסה שמקסה דורות יש כסה שנוהגים כולו בקסת עניינים ואין כוח בגדוליהם למחו בידם ושקעתי בפלח מאזניים וראיתי שיעשה שכרו בהפסדו ועוגב כבש חיין נגד דברים אחרים שהעולם עומד עליהם. And he goes, bottom line is that this is the least of all the evils, the ugab. Okay, because you can't even really say it's asur. Okay, and I don't. He's going to get to it later anyway. So I'll leave it. But he's going to say still that it's not even that a Jew is playing it. It's a goy, who's hired, beforehand. He's told before Shabbat, before Yom Tov what to do. So there's really no problem over there, but we'll get to that. אתה הוראת לדעת שעד כען דיברנו על עניין החרם ולא על עיקר הדין, אם אסור או מותר וכעת עתינה לעומקה דידינה. It goes until now, I tried to respond to you about this harem of the Hatam Sofer, and I think I've proved my point. But I want to get to the issues now, whether it's haram or it's asur or mutar. And those are issues that we have to get to. You're dealing with this ugab like it's something the oraita. And you're saying it's something that there's no mahloket. And everything is given from one shepherd, from Moshe Rabbeinu, in other words. Have a daileka. But you're wrong. It's incorrect. I'm sorry, you made a mistake. everything regarding the ugab, regarding the organ, is an issue of mahloket. And it's not asur midbre Torah. And you can't even say that it's agreed upon that it's asur midrabbanan. بإمكان يش لدون بسافق دربانان وأزلينان لكلا. We have a rule in halakhah when we are dealing with a safek دربانان. We have a doubtful situation دربانان. The law is that we move to the side of leniency, and that's the way we rule. وهم يحميروا إنه إلا ها الطو ها بكشتا قاد بعيدنا شحتم صوفير بحبيراف عمدو لقدور جيدر هياه دابار نحوس لو على قبل بعد إلا عال شلو شابش عي إسرائيل كموش معين يرئي بعينا بكيحا بشوبوت اللالو. He goes, and that the Hatan Sofer forbade it. It's not because it's not something that's up for mahlokat or up for debate and something that we can't say as an pula, because for the Hatan Sofer, it was the sake of building a fence. He had to make a gate, he had to make a fence, and there were other issues at hand. And we're going to deal with the other issues, as he tells you as well over here. He goes, but don't think that I don't know what the issues are, because I looked at the teshubah of the Hatan Sofer, and I understand how to approach this. Here, yeah. Okay. عتا تابودنا على البيا بئر بساد يسور هشمعات قل بشبات ويوم توب. So the first thing he wants to deal with over here, Rabbi Askénazi, is if it's asur from the deen of hashma'at kol b'shabbat, something that Rabbi Kook did not deal with in his teshubah or his letter to Rabbi Askénazi at all. Because we know there are some Ashkenazi poskim that say it is asur of hashma'at kol. You're causing a sound to be heard. Like the Ashkenazi will tell you can't use a door knocker on Shabbat. Or if you have an alarm that goes off, you cannot have that alarm go off. Or other things of the such. They tell you it's asur. So he wants to deal with that topic first. يدوها الدبار مفرسمها عنيان شهود دافكة على يدي goy. So first of all, we know it's only a goy. بأميران لgoy shibut دربنان. And saying something to a goy is shibut دربنان. بكبار ملخي إلهيم عوني بيردين با زي أمار بخاب زي أمار بخاب بدبار مزفا شرينان كمو هدلكا بكبور نير بشباب بدكنيزت. And if it's an issue of mizvah, we know that we allow it. Like if we need to tell the goy for sorech mizvah for the bet knesset to put on the lights or to turn off the lights. שיש לנו על מי לסמוך בתפילה מקרא המזבח. And over here, this is the issue because the tefillah in the bet knesset is considered דבר מזבח. אך יש לנו לדעת, האם העוגב נשרח כל כך תפילה? But now, is the עוגב, is the organ that necessary for tefillah? אנחנו אומרים בפה מלא, okay, we say, absolutely. As he explained to us his situation in Oran, yes, it's what brings the people to Kenis to come pray. והניסיון הורה לנו בקהילתנו. And this has been tried and tested over here in our congregation. ואין אנחנו ערבים לקהילות אחרות. And we have no allegiance to any other kehillah. Every kehillah has to deal with their own cases in their own way. שהוא מושך לבב אחינו להתפלל. This draws the people to come and want to pray. ומתוך שלא לשמה, יבואו לשמה. And even though they're coming for the music only, initially, but then they keep coming and they're drawn in and they really want to pray. And now we know that the people come for it on a regular basis, you know, and that's what brings them in, and that's what helps to enjoy the prayer and brings them close to Borei Olam. Imken. So now we could say, okay, we're not even telling the goy on Shabbat, we're telling the goy from Arab Shabbat. Okay? ושאני לך פה רק ראשי פרקים בהעברה, ויש לי פסק מאת הגאון המפורסם מן המערב, כמו מורנו הרב רפאל אלקווה על הרואתו. And I'm just giving you headlines, because I have in my possession a ruling from Rabbi Rafael Alqawa and his position on this. Neged elef mahmirim, against thousands of people that are mahmir. Basko afilu be'elef lo be'tel. And even if you bring me more than 1,000 people that are against the ruling of Rabbi Alqawa, we have Rabbi Alqawa's ruling. Now, unfortunately, we don't have Rabbi Alqawa's ruling. I don't think we've located it yet. At least I haven't in whatever sources I've looked in. ועוד, ביתה לאסור את העוגה משום בחוקותיהם לא תלכו בקללה כילד לכל מנהג שלהם. Now you want to come and say, this is חוקות הגויים. This is the ways of the goyim, and we have a sur deoraita ubchokotehem lo telechu. Do not go in the paths of the non-Jews. Yes, let it be what it is without any sort of argument. והפוכו שאין ראיה מזה על העוגה בעניין הרואה יראה והלומד ידע בדת נכונה שמהריג בשורש בחטא פוסק שאין לאסור משום חוק אלא בעם שני חלקים. האחד דבר שאין טעמו נגלה וקבלה ביד אבותיהם, והעניין השני דברי שחס וגאווה כמו לבוש ארגמן. He goes, when we're talking about חוקותיהם לא תלכו, we have two rules, two situations that we have to look for each time. And number one, it's something that its reason is unknown. It's just a tradition in their hands with no known reason. And item number two, it's something they do out of haughtiness, like wearing purple clothing, for example. Okay, so if you have these two conditions, then it becomes a sort of وحقوتهم لا تلخوا. بخاخي دعت ماران ببيت يوسف, and this is the opinion of Maran in بيت يوسف. كمو شمفرش بسمان كف عين حيط بالطور يردعا بجم كين دعت هراما بدل كموشي بجهاش لا يردعا سمان هنسكيل العيل. Fine, we're on page 7 now on top. وبعقاب إن حال مشني تعميم. And with the ugab, we don't have either one. They don't do the ugab because it's an old tradition. The ugab is a fairly new instrument. They don't do ugab because of haughtiness, because it's something that just brings beauty to the services. ובעל הגהות מימוניות אמר בימי פירוש לשם הרם שאין להוסיף מסברה על מה שמנו החיים שהייתה קבלה בידם שהוא מחוקות הקום. And we don't add things to find more reasons to say things are asur because of hukot hagoyim. And we know Rabbi Yisrael Moshe Hazan has a very lengthy teshubah in Kerach Shel Romi, I believe it's even Siman Aleph, where he really gets into the whole concept of hukot hagoyim, and he really outlines it very, very clearly for us. He goes, you, Rabbi Kook, you said it's asur for hukot hagoyim, but you made it up on your own. It doesn't fit into the guidelines that we have. Sorry. And I don't know how you could say it's not something that's, disagreed upon. Sorry, we're Sephardim. We have Maran. We have Shulchan Aruch. We have a ruling. You're hacham enough, you Rabbi Kook. So this hint to you, you should get the hint, what I'm telling you. Okay? Again, he keeps giving him little digs. And you can tell it's not out of disrespect. It's about how he feels his entire congregation was attacked. Okay. את אשר אמרת שמרימה גשובה קוף סדי בית. הסתיבה של לבוש אדום אין בו משום תועלת. התשובה הזאת לא נמצאת אצלי, ואם כוונת לתשובה בחטא, הדרנה למאי דכתבנה לעיל. ופירוש המהריק על הספר גם כן בקשתי ולמוסדי מהאמן. He's referring to something in Rabbi Kook's letter to him. He says, I don't have those sources, I can't look them up. ויש לי פירוש הזרע אברהם על הספרי, והוא מייטה דווקא את השח משם מהריק, שאין דרך הסנועים להיות אדומים בלבושיהם. ועוד אתה מסור בידינו להקפיד על לבישת האדום לבני עמנו, ואין מי שעלה בדעתו שהספרי דבר הדברים שמיוחדים לשם פלוחנם, אלא אתה בפלפולך ואגב חריפותך. על זה תקרא גוף תורה. He goes, okay, you're saying that red is asur. We don't have such a tradition that red is asur. In fact, we say that red is mutar. And we wear red things. He goes, so your Torah and our Torah, we have a difference in them, obviously. ובר מן דן, יש בידינו לשף הרגשתך על מהריק. אם הדברים כהבייתם, דענו לידתי, דבר שאמר שבלבוש ארגמן אין בו תועלת, היינו שאין להתיר את הרגמן משום תועלת, בכבוד מאחר שהעקום לובשים אותם משום שחס וגאווה, ומשום הטעם השני. וזה פשוט לכל מי שמעיין בעין יפה בשורש פחד של מהריק וקיים אלן, אם כן לא מנסה בדבריך אות או מופת חתוך, לאסור את העוגה מדברי תורה או מדברם בלי מחלוקת ושינוי דעת הפוסקים, לכל אחד לשיטתו עזד בפירוש דברי הרמב"ם והספרי. Because no matter how you slice it, there's a mahloket, and once there's a mahloket, we said before that as linan lehakil, we move to go with the lenient route. That is the rule. وبيدينا لسموخ على مي שנרצה, ועל מה שעלה בדעתך להביא ראיה לחשש מינות ואפיקורסות, הן דברים הנאמרים על היחיד שאין אנו יודעים אותו ואת מחשבותו הספונה. Now you're saying us that we are siding with heresy? I'm sorry. You can't call an entire congregation heretics. That's something you would call one person if that person is a heretic and you don't know what's going on in that person's mind. But here, we're telling you what's going on in our minds. We're in entire kihillah and we have no heresy. We're calling you the Torah. We're calling you the Hachamim. Plain and simple. About kihillah rabbah, and this is a kihillah that is known to everybody. Come and see us. We're open. We're not hiding. He goes, yes, we're aware that some people say that it's asur, but we've proven to you that it's not asur, and it brings people to Torah, and we're an open congregation that people have been coming here for the last 18 years, and they see that it's going on, and nobody opened their mouth till now. Enough said. וכל שכן דברים לקח חשדה כדגרסינה מפרק כל הסלמים מחשירה לחשדה והבי כנשתה לשווייתי בהדעה דאוקומה באנדרטרתה והביא עלי באבו דשמואל הלוי מוסלי וגבריו ולא חשיר לשדה רבים שני. Okay, this is an issue of, we're talking about bringing in idols. We're talking about, we're not doing anything like that whatsoever. We're bringing in an instrument that a goy is told before Shabbat to play the instrument on Shabbat. It's a shebut, and it's an amira de goy, and it's not a mahlok, and it's not hukot hagoyim. It doesn't fall into any situation where you could call it asur. And I brought all this before you, that שגם לטענותיך יש ויש תשובה. He goes to show you that to every one of your points I have a response. ולא קטני קנה באגמה הבו הספרדים. And we Sephardim are not like little tadpoles in the river. Okay? Don't think we're little nobodies. Okay? This should remind you of the teshubah from Rabbi Meir Waknin, when he used a similar concept, when he said, you look at us, you don't even call us Sephardim, you call it Sephardim. So it's a similar concept. They're used to the Ashkenazim, coming at them like that. וזכור הרב אלפנדרי, אשר היה בספד, והגידו לנו מגידי אמת, שעם כל חוכמתך וכבודך היה קורא לך פעם בפעם, חמור חבר עתיק. אף אם הוא שבח דאמר קרא רבז בין המשפטים ודברי שרבי אינו רשאי לעלותם בכתב. All right, I'm not going to get into this. Okay. אבל כל זה אך למותר בעוגב שאני זה פסוק מלא בכתובים ודוד כסבח מזבח הללוהו אל בקודשו מתרגמינן הללויה שבחו אלוהה בבית מקדשה הללוהו במינים ועוגב. He goes here, David HaMelech, he wrote Tehillim, he sang Tehillim. He's talking about going and praising Borei Olam in the Beit HaMikdash with the Ugab. Here we are, we're now at Beit Mikdash Mi'at, and we're praising Borei Olam with the Ugab. ואם איתה משום איכה יעבדו הגויים את אלוהיהם ויעשה כן גם אני. And this has nothing to do with us imitating the goyim because they serve their God with the Ugab we want to serve also. It has nothing to do with it. Hasheta David lahava yada. Who was David imitating? The goyim are imitating David HaMelech. So we're following our king, David HaMelech. וגם נגד התרגום ונגד האמת אתה אומר כמו החתם סופר שדוד לא כאמר על בית המקדש והווה מנגן ביתו בעוגב הלא עשת היחיד משום חוקותיהם ומשום לחוקות הגויים משום מינות. Now you're saying that the ugab is off completely and you can't even play it at home if you want to play it by yourself? What is this? This is not minut. The organ is not heresy. إلا حات يريد الكود ليتا משום כל هاي. ודוד הוא העד אם בבית המקדש, אם בביתו, והעוגב אינו אסור לא מצד עצמו, ולא משום עבודה זרה, ולא משום מינות. Because the ugab, the organ is not forbidden. It is not forbidden on its own behalf, and it's not forbidden because of minut, and it's not forbidden because of עבודה זרה, and it's not forbidden, period. Final page, page 9. ומתה חושד את קהילתנו ואותנו. And if you still have your doubts and you still suspect us and our congregation, kamonu kamucha, you're no better than us. שכבר נחשדת לפני הרב בלומנפלד, שבפומבי היה קורא לך מין ואפיקורוס. We know, it's very well known that there were many great Ashkenazi rabbis who did not like Rabbi Kook. And many articles and books and things have been written about this, about people, rabbinical leaders, anti-Rabbi Kook. Because you think we don't know about it here in Algeria? Because we know the rabbis don't like you either. And they've called you mean and they've called you apikoros. עם כל זה, שא ולמד מתשובת הרמב"ם, מאמר קידוש השם, שמשה נענש לאלתר משום החושד בקשרים. He goes, go, read Harambam, read what he wrote, open up the Torah, see, because Moshe, Rabbeinu, called Am Yisrael, Shim'ona HaMurim, he complained about Am Yisrael. In the end, he was punished. וכמו כן ישראל בימי אליהו, היו כולם עובדי עבודה זרה. Right? Am Yisrael in the days of Eliyahu and Nabi, they all worshipped עבודה זרה. ולא טוב עשה אליהו ללמד חובה על ישראל. And Eliyahu and Nabi came and he said, Am Yisrael is not following your Torah, not following your Berit. And Borei Olam came out against him as well. King Gizman Yeshayahu. Yeshayahu came against the people, Borei Olam came against Yeshayahu. The Torah, the Nebi'im, the Ketuvim, they're full of such similar cases. We have to learn from these cases and not follow the bad examples, only follow the good examples. And if everything I've written till now is not enough for you, שהחומרה היתרה תקו בטהר מזבע עליך לפרסם מחנה העברים שעדתנו כעדת צדוק וביתוס וענן. He goes, if everything I've told you till now is not good enough, please, Rabbi, I want you to go and publicly denounce us. Say that we are from the Siddukim and the Baitosim and the Karra'im. Anan is the head of the Karra'im. Goes, go, tell the world about us. shame us in front of the world. ונحن בדידן כמו שאר קהילות צרפת, אירופה ואמריקה. And we'll be more than happy to stay in the same camp with all the other communities of France and Europe and America. וכל הטובות שעשינו לאחינו האשכנזים, בית החולים של דיסקין, המזרחי וכולי, הן אסורות בתורה. He goes, and keep in mind that all the money that we sent from here, from Algeria, a very wealthy community, Algeria, we sent tons of money to Israel to build the Diskin Hospital and the Mizrahi Hospital and other things like that in Israel. They now become asur medibret Torah because you are saying that now we are a kehila of that's asur because we're a bunch of apikursim. Okay, so make sure if you ever get sick, okay, don't go to any of those hospitals. It'd be asur for you to get treated over there, and make sure make sure you tell all the emissaries from Israel, from all the yeshivot and all the bete knesiyot and all the cities, never come to Algeria to collect money because our money is asur. כי אז נראה למי חותמת, והשם לאמת צדיק יבחן, וידענו שרחמה ליבה בעיר, and we'll know in the end who Borei Olam is going to stick up for us or for you. Okay, ואם אתם יודעים שלא טוב עשיתם להתערב בקהילה אשר איננה מתכם, and if you finally realize and agree that it wasn't good what you did in getting yourself involved in a קהילה that is not part of your jurisdiction, הלא כתיב אתבהב בסופה. Write it, put it in writing, apologize. ואנשים אחים אנחנו, and then we could be brothers again. And he signs off his letter. Very, very powerful teshubah. We learn about the ugab, the organ, but what we learn more importantly is the place that hachamim have to, or not rather the place, but rather the importance the hachamim need to look at their communities with, how they have to stand up for the communities, lead them, guide them, and protect them from getting bashed from the outside. Nowadays, unfortunately, we see constantly fear among the rabbis that they need to do what the next rabbi says, and what the next rabbi says, and what the next rabbi says, and nobody wants to be a posek for himself. They only will rely on the next posek. And I'm sure there's a lot of lessons that come out of this that each one of you could come up with on your own. I just found it to be an audacious teshuvah. Something that I've never come across any place. This is just wild. I'll give the floor to Rabbi Kasola first to say something that I'd like to hear from the rest of you, if you don't mind. Rabbi, please.
I'm shocked. I'm just totally shocked into quietness and awe. This is awe-inspiring. I wish that every rabbinical school would have this as required reading. Can we? Did he write a sefer shelot teshuvot? Do we have more of his responsa? Can we read more about him? Because he did admit that he wasn't in favor of the uga. He did say he wasn't in favor of it, but the courage that he has to stick up for his kehillah is manifest. It's so awe-inspiring. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Yeah. I haven't found any of his writings yet. I am looking, I'm asking around, and I'm sure things will turn up, or at least I hope they will.
Where did you find this?
This was sent to me. This has been circulating the last couple of months, and it was sent to me by some friends in Israel.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. David, Batash, what do you think of it?
Very interesting. Extremely interesting. I like the way he just stands up for himself. But the question is, who instituted it in his community, and who was Rabbi Ankawa exactly?
Rabbi Ankawa. Well, there were a number of different Rabbi Ankawas. He's talking about Rabbi Raphael Ankawa. I can get you his exact dates, but he's somebody that's quoted left and right by all the rabbis of North Africa. He was known as Hamalach Raphael. That's how holy he was. Well, let's see if I can get some information for you. Rabbi Raphael.
Algeria, it's like Were they connected to the Moroccans rabbinically?
Yes and no. Because it was all part of North Africa, they had a connection, but at the same time, there were vast differences between the rabbis of Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya. That's really the North African region. So they had connections and they had intermingling, but they had vast differences, and at times they didn't even know of each other. Like, take, for example, this Rabbi David Askénazi. I thought I would find, something, some sort of letters back and forth on any topic between him and Rabbi Yosef Mesas, especially since Rabbi Yosef Mesas was the rabbi of Tlemcen in Algeria for a while. Only 2 short letters, which were, just basically hellos and goodbyes with no real information. So it's surprising, but then again, the rabbi may have been so busy that he didn't have time to interact with other rabbis, considering his position as we outlined in this Teshuvah. As far as Rabbi Ankawa, he was from Morocco, from Saleh, Morocco, born in 1848, and he died in 35. So obviously he dealt with this topic, but we don't have that Teshuvah, at least not that I've located so far. I am looking for other things. From other things I've been able to come across, that this organ was in use in Oran at least until 1953, and that there was also an organ in the great Sephardic synagogue of Vienna, Austria, until that was destroyed by the Nazis. And supposedly in various cities in Italy, there were organs in Sephardic synagogues. And in France, there were organs in Spanish Portuguese synagogues. So I'm still trying to find more information on this. It's a very difficult topic to find something, because if the rabbis of a congregation instituted something, it was there and nobody opened their mouth. So we don't have written information about them. We don't have teshubot. We don't have any arguments. This is something that we also generally wouldn't have anything about, but only because somebody attacked it and he felt that his entire kehillah was under attack, he wrote back. And until now, we never knew about this teshuvah. It's been sitting, in the Rabbi Kook archives for the last 85 years.
Rabbi Kook did not respond, so one can say, "Shetikako da adame."
It's very possible, or it could have been that he was too ill to respond.
Okay.
Remember, we said he died September 1st of 35. So he never had a chance to respond, or he was too ill, or as you said, he read this and he said, okay, I'm throwing in the white flag. Barry, Jackie, anybody?
Amazing. Amazing.
All right, I guess that's it for this Teshuvah for tonight. I think it was a real eye-opener. I enjoyed reading it. I enjoyed reading it together with you guys. And the research I did.
Comments?
I'm sorry?
Barry, any comments?
No, very interesting. I think,
I like this Ashkenazic outlook, so come on. Explain
yeah,
it.
I think he really stood up for himself, as Joey pointed out, and he wasn't about to just take criticism. And,
right, but it wasn't about himself. You could tell it wasn't about himself. It was about his congregation. He really felt that, they were under attack and that he had to, right the wrong.
Yeah, and it was also Rav Kook's attempt to inject his own perspective and ideas into a kehillah that was far removed from, his purview and his understanding, which says a lot.
Absolutely. You know what? To somebody like Rav Kook.
Well, who did Rabbi Kook write his Teshuvah to? Who did he address it to?
He Did he? Let's see if it says. I know he sent it to. Let's see if it says.
Not even knowing really the first part.
He doesn't seem to address it to anybody other than the congregation.
That's an issue.
He doesn't know them. He doesn't know them at all. He was told something's going on over here, something bad. You better answer. You better, let these people know. He sent the telegraph. Obviously, the telegraph meant nothing. And so he was prodded to write a teshuvah. Like Rabbi Kasola said, why Rabbi Kook and not Rabbi Uziel? Because obviously the guy who went there was Ashkenazi, and he only thought of going to the Ashkenazi rabbi. To him, he saw him as the highest authority to go to.
Okay, fair enough.
That's all I could think of. Obviously, it's a topic that needs further investigation. I don't know how much more we can find. I've been looking around, finding bits and pieces, but nothing specifically on this case. But it's still interesting to see, if there were other congregations that had a organ or piano and were using it on Shabbat or not. Because here, we said Rabbi Uziel has a teshubah that he wrote in 47 to Buenos Aires, not about something that we're using on Shabbat, just that they had the instrument in the synagogue to use for weddings, let's say on a Sunday or a Monday or a Tuesday, whatever it is, that bothered him so much that he, on his own, wrote a teshuvah telling them to stop it. And just so you know, they did not stop it. They still have it. The Sephardic temple in Cedarhurst has something. I don't know if it's a keyboard or organ or something or other. They definitely have something over there. When is it used? I don't know. The Sephardic temple started off as Orthodox and turned conservative. So I can't really comment as to how valid that is or when it came in. But it's not something that we're doing or not something that we're looking to start instituting in our synagogue, but that the rabbi was so impassioned about, upkeeping the ways of the kehillah and of the hachamim that preceded him, and the mindset and ruling of Sephardic hachamim and the approach to halakhah, and how we can find a way to allow something, even though our first knee-jerk reaction would be to say, yeah, it's asur. That's not the way of Sephardim, and that we've seen, over the last 20, 30 years.
It improved the prayer, according to him.
Yes, it improved the prayer a lot, and it
That's
brought people to prayer.
But it sounds like he didn't like it in the beginning, and he sees a difference.
He didn't like it, and you could tell he didn't like it, but he saw that it made people want to come pray.
Right. That's the beauty of this teshuvah.
Right. So that's also what he said in the teshuvah. Because you have to know when to push away and when to pull close. You have to always know to keep that balance. He goes, I established a lot of good things to improve our community, and and this was something that I wanted to end, and I saw that by trying to end it, it would destroy all the other good things that I did. So leave it alone.
That's the thing.
In other words, you can't be a bully. You can't fight with the people. You have to work with the people. It was nice. It was very nice.
Even though I was rooting for and identifying with Rabbi Askénazi, when you read the Teshuvah, I want to say that I also respect Rabbi Kook for feeling that Ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, because the last time we heard of this is for the COVID-19, not to pray with minyanim, and that was followed in many places. But we rarely have found that there is and probably it's better not to have that. But I respect Rabbi Kook for feeling that achdut with a community so far removed from him, that he was compelled to answer. And I'd like to try to think that he maybe was deceived by this she'elah, perhaps, but he
Possibly.
felt compelled to respond. And I want to just, I just want to, I want to pick up his cudgels. I want to take up his cudgels, Rabbi Kook's, for feeling a responsibility to Algeria. Even though I was rooting for Rabbi David and I want to read more about him, you're going to keep me up all night tonight. By the way, you're going to keep me up.
So you'll come back to us with your findings.
Yeah.
I'll fall asleep. Amazing.
No. You're going to write a little article and send it to us at least. Come on, Rabbi.
Amazing responsa. How you find these is amazing.
Borei Olam sends them to us.
Wow.
So Rabbi. You have to believe it.
Wow. Amazing. Next week?
Next week? Another week. Who knows what we're going to come up with next week?
You don't have it yet in your back pocket?
No, not yet.
Oh, my goodness.
I have ideas in my back pocket, but doesn't know that I'm, never know what I'm going to come up with. Sometimes I find something very interesting, something I like. I just fall out of everything. So
Hazaku Baruch. Wow.
we could give you the floor one week, Rabbi.
Wow. No. You're amazing.
I'm not amazing.
Rabbi Yosef, you're amazing.
David, tell him I'm not amazing, please.
Don't cut this video off, please. Keep this in. Amazing. Scintillating. Absolutely scintillating.
You must be really bored down there in Atlanta.
No, you're